Hey Kev, let's follow this trail over here. This looks like there might be something waiting down there.
All right. Hey, wait a minute. Do you hear that?
Yeah, I thought it was just me. What the heck is that?
I don't know what that is. Whoa, do you smell that too?
That's unbelievable. Hey, look.
What the?
Hey, look, those branches are moving over there.
What the heck is that?
Holy cow, is that what I think it is? Look at that thing.
Oh my God.
It's a freaking Sasquatch. Welcome to the Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters podcast. My name is W.J. Sheehan, author of the series of books Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters. A bunch of volumes available. How's that, Kev?
A bunch.
Yeah, rather than go through
a plethora of volumes.
A plethora of volumes available, including
a whole mantle of Christmas stockings full of books.
Yeah, folks, if you knew, I had 12 initial volumes. I'm about halfway through the regional series now, which is a compilation of the other volumes put together by region. All of this stuff, whatever I have available, is on Amazon and Audible and audiobooks, paperback ebooks, and Kindle. So go out there. You'll love this stuff. The material is great. The feedback is great from the listeners and the readers, and you will enjoy it as well. And now, you've heard my brother in the background. May I introduce you to my brother and co-host, KJ Sheehan. Kev, how are you?
I'm doing great, Bill. How are you?
Very good. You know, you were spot on, Kev, in the last podcast, bringing up the drone sightings, because it is obviously the buzz across
it's all over
America.
The news, right? Of course, not a surprise. Since we unleashed the podcast, now it's all over the news. I did have a half a dozen reporters stop by today that wanted to talk. Of course, I said no comment.
No comment. No comment.
No comment. Sorry.
But
no
it
comment.
is amazing. I was just a shout out to Jason from our search and rescue squadron in the Olympic National Forest. Jason, I was talking to him today, and he gave commentary on the drones, you know, and somebody else called me earlier today, Nelson Burden from down south, also talking about the drones. So everybody is buzzing. And, of course, they all think, for me, Kev, they're flying over my house because I'm from New York, you know. But it's interesting. This stuff has the attention of the majority of Americans in the moment.
No real theory yet,
answers.
Right?
Yeah, no particular answers worthy of note.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So my wife is not a big fan of the cryptids. You know, I know that's a shocker, but opposites attract. And she asked me a couple of nights ago. She's like, "Hey, so what's the story with these drones?" I was like, "Didn't you listen to the podcast last week? I covered it."
Hey, you want all the news that is news?
She's like, it's all over the news. Like what? She's like, is this like those Tic Tac things in San Diego with the Navy? I was like, no, I wish it was. I don't know what it is. Like it doesn't really seem like it's a UFO or anything. It seems more like it's these big drones that nobody's coming forward with what it is. I don't understand it, Bill. It's a mystery to me.
Yeah, and I heard commentary just today that apparently they may be enlisting the help of the Coast Guard to see if there are any vessels offshore where these things could be launching from. It's so bizarre.
It's
I mean, why don't
bizarre. And somebody told me today that someone filmed it. I didn't see this yet, but this is just like 3 hours ago. Someone filmed a helicopter hovering over one of the drones.
Yeah, and I heard about this guy, and he said that he landed the helicopter for fear of, these things interfering with flight or perhaps crashing into it. So that's kind of weird too, like people flying around checking these things. I don't understand why we just don't take one down.
I just don't understand why, like, the government is so quiet on it, and yet it's a big issue. It's not like a one-off or a two-off or a three-off. It's like every day people are seeing them.
Yeah, constant.
And not over unpopulated areas, right? I mean,
yesterday I heard they had over 180 sighted.
Yeah.
What the heck is that?
Yeah.
That's just like nuts.
I don't know. Stay tuned, folks, and keep us posted. And Bill, it's not really, it's on the national news, but it's not on our local news down here in North Carolina. So
okay.
You got to keep me posted on it. I keep Googling it and searching, figuring I'm going to find out,
Right. Well, just a couple of things I just mentioned of what I heard. The thing about the Coast Guard. I heard about the helicopter pilot that was above one and decided he was going to land and not risk crashing or collision. I've heard a bunch of denials. I heard the governor of New Jersey saying that people think I'm lying, and he said, I don't know anything more about this than you do.
Did he
this is the governor.
It wasn't the New Jersey Air Force?
Yeah. This is the governor of New Jersey saying this stuff is flying around his property as well as our own, and saying, I don't have any idea. I mean, if the governor of a state can't get any resolution to things flying around his constituents, what can the rest of us hope for?
Did he mention if it was the Jersey Devil?
No, I think that's his wife.
Oh.
I don't even know if the guy's married. But I can't resist a crack. Anyways, Kev, what do you got in cryptids in the news and other oddities today?
Yeah, we're going to talk about a couple of items, a couple of old items, and then one that's kind of old, but they just came up with some new enhanced video of it, okay?
Okay.
So first off, we're going to go to Pennsylvania. And all of these encounters come from an article that was published online from our friends at All That Is Interesting. And they did a story. It's pretty cool, and I'm gonna reach into it a few more times, which was 8 unnerving Bigfoot stories that will make believers out of skeptics.
Wow!
And it was just published back in October of this year. And so they jump around some of the classics, a couple of new ones, and I'm just going to touch on a few of them tonight.
And how do you feel about them?
What do you mean, the articles?
Oh no, as far as the veracity of these grouping that will make
they're reporting on it,
Okay.
I think they're trustworthy. They're more like cryptids, news reporters, beat reporters.
Okay.
And the first one I like because it's an old encounter, so it's in Pennsylvania. And they talk about the fact that the first documented account of a Bigfoot-like creature, of course it wasn't a Bigfoot back then, dates back to 1858.
That's a good long time ago, man.
Time ago, right?
Yeah.
And in that case, what did they call him back then, Bill? You know this.
Just a hairy man?
Or the wild man.
Oh, wild man, okay.
Yeah. And so they saw this around Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and it resulted in nationwide coverage. And they called it a wild man, and the quotation is from the witnesses, it was a thing like a man, but hairy as a bear. It's been seen by lots of people, and it's very wild and strong. And they say it was once seen in a pen with cows, and when discovered, it started as if it was about to fight, and then it turned and fled, and it was bounding like a deer.
Wow.
And it walks upright and is supposed to be what's called a wild man.
Yeah, Kevin, so many times in accounts, we hear about the Bigfoot turning at people and like flexing or squeezing its fists like the Hulk, you know. Ah! But then it doesn't really attack. It turns. It's like a show of bravado or force or frustration. We don't know. We're not in its head.
Yep.
And then they turn and move out or run away. I don't know if they're afraid or they just don't want to deal with you or what that's all about.
Right.
But we have the same thing going on in this 1858 account, you know.
Yep.
This thing is turning and I could visualize it doing that and then bounding away.
No doubt about it. But
Wow.
I'd be pretty wild. 1858.
That's crazy. And this was where? In Lancaster?
Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Wow. I wonder what Lancaster was like in 1858.
Isn't that like where Amish country? It probably hasn't changed that much.
Yeah, big farmland, grassland,
Yeah,
split rail fences,
exactly.
you know.
Wild man, Sasquatch,
Wild man.
Bigfoot. And you know, Bill, I mean, you were just talking about your regional books. It's a bit of a hotbed there in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, a lot of people don't consider exactly where these things are and are being seen. But, folks, that's why my regional books are really cool. Because you could go state by state, and that's just what I know of, what I've reported on.
Right.
There's quite a few reports in Pennsylvania, Vermont, Maine, you know, and you can zone in on these areas and find out, you know, what's been said.
Right.
So it's interesting. Wow, that's cool, Kev. What else did they say about it? Anything or no?
That's about it. You know, they they go on, they talk about like where somebody found a big footprint in August 26th of 1980, but that's all they talk about it back in 1858 in
Wow.
that area.
Yeah. And again, the news back then, or the ability to acquire news and or read about things, was negligible at best, I would imagine,
Exactly.
you know. So if one person reported finding one footprint, really how many people may have actually seen a footprint?
Exactly.
You know? So,
But
wow, that's
it was
crazy,
picked
man.
up, you know, in the news, and somebody could still find it today, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, amazing, man.
Yeah.
So what else you got?
All right. Well, now you ready? We're going to get on an airplane,
Okay.
and we're going to move ahead in time to 1951. So we're a little less than 100 years, but we're on an airplane. We got a really long flight.
Okay.
We're going to the Himalayas.
Oh, man, yeah.
Yeah. We're going to talk about, you know, the first sightings by Eric Shipton of what people referred to then as Yeti or the abominable snowman.
Yeah. This is an interesting phenomena, the Yeti, and the Tibetans, Sherpas. You know, when you hear some of these people interviewed, you want to talk about people who don't have an axe to grind. I mean, you know, they're so simple living people and just living up in the hills with some yaks and milking them in little terraced gardens on the side of a hill and, you know, commenting on this thing coming out and killing one of their animals and seeing it and what, you know, and going in these snowfields and seeing the tracks. I mean, I really find it hard to believe that everybody is pulling your leg. You know what I mean,
Oh,
Kev?
I'm with you.
So, but what do you? Well, let's talk about this initial sighting.
Yeah, so
with
it's
Chip.
pretty interesting. So this is, like I said, back in 1951. And, you know, some folks, you know this, Bill, you know, they think this is a unique creature living there in the Himalayas, either the Yeti or the abominable snowman, and they think it's different. Significantly different than the Bigfoot, but a lot of others think Bigfoot and Yeti are probably part of the same species and are just, you know, regional takes on the same creature, right? Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you know, Bill, you know the whole theory of this giant ape, always hard for me to say, Gigantopithecus, That
You got it.
I got it.
Yeah.
Ring the bell. All right.
Ding, 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 ding.
That originated, people think, in southern Asia, down there near the Himalayas, and then actually made it across the Bering Sea bridge that existed back then, and that could be related to the creature that we see in the Pacific Northwest and up in Canada.
Yeah, and Kev, one of the greatest things in recent times that I got my hands on, I don't know if did you recommend it or was it a listener, the book The Longest Walk?
No, not me, I don't think.
Oh, man. Folks, that is a must-read, The Longest Walk. It's a true story about a group of men that escaped from a Russian prison camp in Siberia. Yeah, and towards the end of the book, after death and despair, climbing through the Himalayas, I mean, people dying, trying to get food and stay warm, and they finally start to break out of the Himalayan range. And what are they confronted with? A couple of Yeti.
Wow. Just when you think it can't get worse.
Right, ahead of them on the path they were traveling. And he described them in as much detail as he could in the book. I think I recall him saying they were hoping they were going to move on so they could continue. But if my memory is correct, they chose a different course to avoid them because they weren't going anywhere.
Seems fair.
Now, again, why would this guy, talking about escaping in the most horrible of circumstances, some of his compadres died, starvation, cold. Why would he suddenly introduce confronting a couple of Yetis ahead of them as they were breaking out of the Himalayas?
Right.
It doesn't make sense. There's he could have just gone on and finished the story, and that would have been the end of it. But it wasn't the end of it. That was in the book as well.
No, yeah, and that's, I'll touch on this a little bit more, this original account by Eric Shipton, because, we've all heard this story a whole bunch of time, all of us that are into cryptids. But, even when I look at it again, it's like, what he came across was a very long trail of 12 to 13-inch footprints, barefoot footprints in the snow. And Bill, how high up do you think he was?
I'd say 20,000.
Good guess, 19,000 feet.
Yeah.
So, there's nothing running around barefoot at 19,000 feet.
No. There's nobody running around barefoot, period, in any snowbound area. Right. I don't care if it's at 100 feet.
Right. And how far you think he followed them?
I'd say 3 miles.
Yeah, well, they said the better part of a mile.
Okay, I knew it was a long distance.
You're not going to, misidentify these tracks because you saw 2 of them or something. Yeah, Bill, and it's not like, he's walking around in the backyard and sees a couple of tracks. He's at 19,000 feet and sees a mile-long trail of tracks.
Yeah, it's really incredible, Kev. And, this individual, Shipton, first of all, you want to talk about an intrepid, gregarious character, just engaging in what he was doing to begin with. Right. Why would he care one way or another about telling a story, some fantastic story? I mean, he's he's climbing Everest. Yeah, and taking
you're climbing Everest. Back then, you don't have to make up stories about seeing Yeti.
Right, you're already going to be touted as a great adventurer in your own right.
And by the way, these tracks don't look like a human footprint.
Yeah, and
so it's not like somebody in his group took their boots off and walked along for a mile.
No, and these guys knew that, and the Sherpas that were with him knew that. Again, we fall back on local lore, local knowledge. I wonder what the mindset was about his crew when they sighted them. I wonder if some of them freaked out a little bit, like, we need to turn back or something like that,
I don't know. That's a good question. They don't talk about the fear that might have been in their in their minds and stuff, but I'm sure it was there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, because a lot of these people, I don't want to use the word superstitious, but local lore comes into play with history in the family, things that have
Well,
happened.
they know about the creature there, right?
Yeah.
Like the Sherpas
Yeah.
that would have been helping him climb.
Yeah, yeah,
They certainly know about the creature.
yeah. There's no doubt about it,
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible, Kev.
Wild stuff, Bill. And we're running a little over, so what we're going to do when we come back, it might not be the next episode because that's probably going to be the Christmas episode. But after that, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about some enhanced video of that really wild skunk ape encounter down in Florida in January of 2015. There's some new video that came out, or enhancement of the existing video. And if you remember, Bill, the existing video was really good.
Yeah, now I remember
So
that.
stay tuned for that. This is where the guys are in a canoe. And they're paddling through the swamp, and this thing is right in front of them in the swamp.
Yeah, it was pretty creepy, man.
And I mean, nobody's climbing in that swamp to putting on an ape suit and climbing around in that swamp. No way.
You wouldn't think so, Kev, right? I mean, am I right?
I mean, not that I wouldn't think so, man.
I mean, just as a goof, you could get nailed by a cottonmouth or anything else, and you'd be in a world.
All day long.
Yeah, you'd be in a world of hurt trying.
And by the way, this is the one where the skunk ape looks like it picks up a big snake
Yeah,
out of the water.
and what the hell could that snake have been?
Yeah.
Swimming around over there. Probably something venomous.
Oh, only venomous.
Yes, just putting a snatch on it for a snack or whatever,
Yeah, just grab it by the neck in that black water right after you do that.
Oh, my God.
So stay tuned. Same bat channel, same bat time. Might be interrupted by the Christmas episode, though. But we may talk a little Krampus, just to keep it real.
All right, well, I got something really interesting here, Kev. And I'll give you a little heads up as we enter into it because it's a construction-related sighting. And I like these because numbers of men are involved. It's like me talking to Dave out in Oregon or Rich. These guys are on work crews, sightings happen. And so you're not a solo witness. There is conversation and information being shared by a number of people. So let's get into this. This following bizarre evidential account was offered to me by a guy named Chris McMillan, a resident of Quebec, Canada. And this is what Chris had to say. I have long since retired, Bill, and what I will talk to you about happened in the early 70s outside of Quebec, where I was employed as a lineman. As is the case most everywhere, when the population increases, the need for more electrical transmission follows in suit. And our company was the place to go when you needed more juice. At that time, we were running some high cables through the forest, which, as you would imagine, was a very labor-intensive operation, including clearing lanes in the woods and installing an elaborate transmission system, which was ongoing for quite some time. When I retired, I was a foreman, but at the time, I was only a few years on the job. We had a lot of equipment then, staged in different areas as the machinery and parts were needed, including cranes, payloaders, dozers, and many tool and storage sheds were constructed. At any given time, millions of dollars of supplies and equipment were in the field at the ready. This
Bill, where was this?
Quebec, Canada.
Quebec.
Yep.
Okay.
This massive operation involved cement mixers, forestry personnel, welders, logging crews, and a host of men engaged in the process. To the best of my knowledge at the time, no theft or damage had been reported, which certainly would have gotten around had it happened, leading up to what I'm about to share with you. I think it was later in the summer that some damage started to occur around the job site, and weird damage at that. Shift levers and doors on sheds were being found bent and misshapen. And in most cases, the damage did not render anything unusual, unlike, say, pouring sugar in a fuel tank or something like that. So word started to get around as to what was happening, and the scuttlebutt was that no tools were being used to perform the damage, as if something with brute strength had done these nefarious acts. For example, the corner of a steel shipping container had been peeled back away from the box, and the boom lever inside the cab of a large crane had been bent sideways, in a way that would have required a heavy amount of leverage to do so. Many other things as these were repeatedly occurring. What I should say we did not know at the time was that the site boss had devised a plan of putting some tree stands in place at night that only a handful of people knew about, and I was not one of them. The results became known in dribs and drabs many months after the fact. 3 stands had been put up in the trees alongside the cleared area, in which armed men were stationed after hours in the hope of catching the culprit or culprits in the act. Mind you, there was absolutely nothing around us in the vicinity where we were working. The men in the stands were all hunters, as were many of us present at the time, well schooled in the area's wildlife and weapons. One of the men reportedly had heard a moose coming into his stand at night, a moose which never arrived and could not be seen, even though it sounded very close to him. This had actually happened on several occasions, with him hearing the grunts and the moose never materializing. On each of these nights that he spoke about hearing the moose, damage had occurred within the job site, and nothing was heard or seen relative to causing the damage. During the stakeout, the snapping sound of what sounded like metal was heard one night, prompting the men to investigate. They cautiously moved about the equipment, finding the door handle snapped off a work truck nearby. The truck's door was locked at the time. Several weeks in, by this time, one of the men in the stands again heard a moose coming in. And just as in the other times, the moose never passed through or by the stand. Only this time, something else was found. The following night, when approaching the stand, the security man found the head of a moose lying on the ground. He had said it was not there when he had left the stand in the morning, having walked the very same path both times. The moose's head had been torn from its body, and the body was not found during what was a very rudimentary search of the immediate area. How the head became detached, as well as what happened to the body, had obviously been spoken about in private circles. None of us privy to this at the time. I later learned that one of the security men had confided in an Indian friend of his who had mentioned Bigfoot, which he later shared with the others as being a potential suspect, being met with the usual denials and ridicule. But that would soon change. Mind you, the only men present in this enormous workspace after hours were these 3 security men set hundreds of feet apart from each other, sitting in trees in the woods and the darkness of night. Now, several weeks had passed, Bill, and one crane had been damaged twice. It was parked closer to the edge of the clearing than anything else in the area. Security had repositioned a stand near it for observation, and it worked. This crane was a 1960 Bucycrus Erie 88B crawler. Its cab sat over the tracks on top of a deck with a railing running around its sides. The boom was always left in a down position at night, lying on the ground for safety reasons. The cab of this crane was painted pale yellow, which stood out under the cover of darkness, easily seen from the newly positioned tree stand that had been moved. This particular security man had a Smith & Wesson Model 29 44 caliber pistol with him the night the Bigfoot was shot twice. As the story was told to me, he had seen something walking alongside the crane's boom, standing taller than the width of the boom, which was substantial. It was walking on two legs and dark in color. When it approached the cab, it leapt onto the deck, clearing the railing in one bound, where he could now see its outline clearly against the creamy yellow paint of the crane's cab. He knew it was no man, and yet he shouted, "Hey, you!" A fact which the other two men concurred on after the shooting. He said that it spun to face his voice, and he immediately fired 2 shots, knowing it was not a man, which was followed by a wailing scream as it jumped off the deck and ran into the trees. The man remained in his stand until the other two had arrived, flashlights in hand, shouting back and forth as they were all together at the location now. The security guard said that it, whatever it was, stood more than 10 feet tall, actually blocking the 2 mufflers that came out of the top of the crane's rear cab when it was standing on the deck, and that it also appeared to be 6 feet wide once they had gotten close to the cab for visual verification. After the shooting, nothing else happened on the job site, everything having been done apparently by this pissed-off resident of the woods. This whole scenario was kept tightly under wraps until the job was actually completed. I heard about it months after the fact from a reliable company source. Blood had been found on the deck. This is the crane's deck, as well as some heavy imprints where it had leapt from the side of the crane. Having seen the damaged shipping container, the doors are hinged and cross-latched with heavy steel components by design, watertight for transport on the deck of an ocean-going freighter. The best I could do looking at it was to barely get the tips of my fingers under the edge of the door, and that was it. How this thing could grab it and bend it is mind-blowing. Was it angry or just curious about all the activity going on? We will never know. But I do know that it is immensely powerful and perhaps does not even know its own strength. The security guard said he fired 2 shots and it screamed, running away into the woods. Had he winged it or hit it once or twice squarely, we will never know. But it did not go hobbling away from the scene by any means. In a funny kind of whimsical way, it reminded me of the old Superman, who after the thugs had exhausted their bullets in vain, he grabbed their pistols, bending them in half and rendering them unconscious for their efforts. What do you make of that, Kev?
Man, 10 feet tall and 6 feet wide. It does sound a little bit like Superman.
Yeah, well, and when it was standing on the deck, I looked at a picture of this crane, what he described it, this Bucycris Erie 88B or whatever it was. This crane was massive. Yeah. And it had a huge cab with like the one I looked at had a black painted metal deck going around the whole cab with a like rod steel dual railing to keep you from like falling off the side. You'd probably break your neck if you fell off the side of the deck.
Yeah, if you fell off the side of the crane, the top of the crane.
And as he described the mufflers, the one I saw had two very tall mufflers, like giant tailpipes and mufflers sticking up out for exhaust. I guess it had dual engines. And this thing was a monster. Incredible, huh, man?
Man, that is wild.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, at first you were talking about the 44 caliber handgun. I'm like, all right, well, that's bringing enough gun. And then when you said it's 10 feet tall and 6 feet wide, I'm like, it's not really enough gun.
Yeah, I mean, like I always say, Kev, always carry more gun than you think you're going to need.
Yeah.
So, 44, Philip and I were talking one night about the incident up in the Michigan Upper Peninsula, the first account in Book 1, where the guy took a .357 mag and fired rounds through the side of the tent, setting the side of the tent on fire, and this thing ran away. And, you know, Philip was saying, you know, .357, man, at close range, that's something that's going to knock you down and you're going to stay down. But not for the Bigfoot.
No.
So, I don't know, man. I don't know what they're made out of, you know, but it's not human.
I like the reference, too, to Superman where bending the guns up. I remember that.
Yeah, the old Stooges, right? They used to stand in front of him, pow, 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 and he'd walk over looking at him and just go, clock
Just
that,
crush the gun.
knock their heads together, and they'd fall on the ground. Yeah, so that's it, bro. I mean, crazy construction-related account.
I love that account.
Yeah, but we've had these before, you know. In fact, one of the original Bigfoot term was coined from tracks that were found around a construction site up in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, exactly. Northern California, I think.
Yep. And
1958.
I think there was, as is the case all the time, you know, people saying it was a farce, it was a whim, you know, baloney. But they were saying that about the Patterson Gimlin film, too, which I think was 110% legit.
Yeah, no, that guy, though, that found those first tracks, I think he admitted that he made the tracks.
Yeah.
I'm going by memory.
Yeah.
So,
but other tracks were found in that area as well, and they weren't all from him.
Yeah.
You know, for every fake, there's a reality. You know what I mean, Kev?
Yeah, well, I told you and I've told our listeners, that's what's so frustrating to me about Bigfoot is, you know, there's just so many hoaxes.
Yeah. But you know what?
I mean, that's why, honestly, I like the UAPs better because it's tough to hoax, you know.
Really tough to hoax.
I mean, I don't think people are getting together and flying these car-sized drones to trick people up in New Jersey, you know.
Yeah, well, that's why, Kev, I rely on some really credible witnesses that I've met.
Well, yeah.
And I just say to myself, there's no reason. There's just absolutely no reason for these people to even get involved.
Yeah, and like the swamp ape one, which we're going to hit on next time around. You know, that takes some, you know, gumption to walk around in a swamp in Florida. You know, not me, man, but I hate snakes.
Yeah, with the
not to mention gators.
With a soaking wet furry suit on.
Yeah, no.
You know. And God help you if you lose your footing and go down.
I was going to say, and poor vision, too, right?
Poor vision, possible quick mud, you know, whatever may be, that you could step into something and lose your life.
Oh, no doubt about it.
So, I don't know. I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that. No. Of course, the naysayers would say otherwise, but I'm not the naysayer. I will call a spade, but I also have to give credit where credit is due as I see it. And people may disagree with me, and that's fine. But, you know, when you present stuff, it's like beauty. It's in the eye of the beholder, right? But
beauty and the Bigfoot.
Yeah, so interesting. So what do we got in our listener mail tonight, Kev?
Yeah, we got some good listener mail. So this first one, Bill, is from a guy named Chris, and it's about Expedition Bigfoot. So I didn't talk to you about this, as I don't talk to you about anything. But I don't know if you saw this episode. I did not. So let's just go through it. It's pretty short. Mm-hmm. He says, "Hi, guys. Please, can you help with this, as I need to know if I'm right or just seeing things. And he says, so on the latest episode of Expedition Bigfoot, when Maria showed the rest of the team the nests that she found, I noticed something that I think the producers did not. If you look at the section where Maria tells Bryce and Russ what she wants them to look for in the nest, and then the camera points to Russ, in the background there is movement of something. Right behind the trees, of some kind of upright creature just looking at what the team is doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is one of the Bigfoot assessing the team around their newly made nests. What do you think?
Yeah, you know, Kev, I looked at that email, and damn it, I wish I knew exactly, because there was a few episodes where they were near the nests.
And this is an older episode, right?
Well, they were near the nests in the last season, and they were near the nests again in the most recent season.
Okay.
And I'm just not sure what he was talking about to actually, like, rerun it and look closely
All
at
right,
it.
Chris. Well, let us know, man. Let us know. BigfootTerrorInTheWoods.com. Contact us. I know you know how to contact us. Let us know what particular episode you were watching.
Right, if you can. And let us know if it was this past season that just ended, you know, a couple of months back, or the year before. And if you could get an episode number or something like that.
Yeah, that's even better.
Yeah, that would be critical. I'd like to look at it and just see, for argument's sake, what is he talking about?
Oh, me too.
You know. But it's also hard to believe that in this show,
that they would miss it.
Yeah, would they miss it?
I mean, only if they did it on purpose.
Yeah.
You know.
I think the cameraman would have said, hey.
Like the old Easter eggs hidden in video games, you know.
Well, you would think the cameraman would have said, hey, turn around.
Yeah.
You know.
He would have stopped and zoomed in on it.
I would think so, you know.
But I don't know. Let's take a look at it, Chris. Let us know when and where it was. All right, Bill. Well, 'tis the season. And Ryan's writing in, we got to be careful here. He says, books for a 9-year-old. Hey, my son loves the podcast. I wanted to get him the books for Christmas. Would it be appropriate? Mostly curious if there's cussing in the books. Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving, Ryan.
Yeah, no, there's no cussing in the books. But I think it'd be absolutely appropriate for a 9-year-old. And by the way, you know, if you're new to the podcast, I have several school teachers who have my books in their libraries at their schools now. One is a junior high school teacher. The other two are what you would call grade school or elementary schools. So if that's any indication about the books, Kevin, you know I did that one interview upstate New York with 3 fourth-grade classrooms on Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah, which is shocking, folks.
Yeah, so...
shocking to me, at least.
Yeah. What a great thing that was. The kids sent me out all kinds of artwork, thank yous, letters. It was fantastic, man.
It's awesome.
And I also was rewarded with some delicious ground coffee.
Ooh.
Yes, very nice it was. That was my payment for the day, a bag of coffee.
That's pretty good payment. All right, and our last email comes in from Brad. And he says, love your podcast, guys. That's the subject. Hi, Bill and KJ. You can call me Brad. I just wanted to say that I love your podcast and really enjoy hearing you two get along and have a good time talking about these sightings and all around creepy things. I am in the forestry industry in Wisconsin, and I have yet to see or hear anything while out in the field, but I have had something imitate my whistle while I was coyote hunting one night, and I just can't explain it.
Yeah.
I also do not think I had nearly enough gun that night if it was a big one. That's good to admit you got a problem there, Brad.
Yeah, and Bigfoot definitely whistle.
Oh, yeah.
So, and they,
Coyotes don't whistle.
right, and if you listen to Indian folklore or whatever you would call it, they are whistlers, and they also mimic many noises, including human voices, animal sounds, all kind. I've heard people say they mimic like car doors slamming, all kinds of crazy stuff.
Wow.
Almost like a mockingbird can mimic a telephone ringing and a typewriter and all of these strange things, you know, Kev?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and by the way, speaking of sounds, I don't know if you can hear it. We got the Apache squadron flying over my house here.
I hear them, Kev, the roar.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah, those boys, man, they're running open headers.
I think they are open headers. They are roaring. The window panes are shaking. So we'll stop there, folks. Great podcast, Bill. And folks, we're coming up on the holiday episode. So get ready. Get some Christmas cheer ready. And get ready for a little Krampus, maybe. And if you haven't left us a 5-star review lately, please do so. And we love your written reviews, too.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. And leave good reviews on the books, too, folks. Audible or paperback, Kindle, whatever you're doing. And please go out there and show some support for all this work I'm putting in and buy a book or two here or there and keep the ball rolling. And by the way, if you should find yourself in the woods of Canada, perhaps Maine, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, hearing whistling in the woods, you best remember one thing, my friends. Always carry more gun than you think you're gonna need. Sleep tight.